Hello and welcome to another episode of the SC Playbook AFL podcast. My name is Dylan Bolch. We've got a massive show for you today. Origin takeaways, things to watch in the match sim, and another expert team reveal. I'm joined today by the SC Bandit, one of the best in the business. Bandit, how are you?
Good, mate. Fresh off Origin. It was quite a spectacle in the end. We'll obviously talk about it a little bit more shortly, but it kind of feels like footy's back now. I think that was a nice little teaser for the season. So yeah, it just feels like footy's around the corner now, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're joined by Steve Nikolovski, coach of the 2021 Supercoach runner-up team. He's got the tracksuit behind him in the background there. Big weekend on the cricket field, Nico.
Yes, hello Dylan. Hey Bandit. So yeah, the track is behind me there. So nice little part of the runner-up package.
Yeah,
and it's I'm a bit sore, but yeah. So we had a good win in cricket, but the body's sore. But yeah, I got a good little tip. Chuck a couple of aspirin in your bath, and it's actually worked a little bit. So yeah, I'm better than what I thought I'd be.
Nice one. Let's talk Origin. Bandit, first up, what were your thoughts on it? Did it work, do you think?
I think so. I must admit, I was a little bit skeptical going into the game. I think, like most people, thinking, like how serious they're going to take it. There was talk of, clubs having a bit of input into, how many minutes each player played and that sort of stuff. And I think most fans would have kind of been watching through sort of covered faces at some stage or another if your players backing back into a pack, and especially Carlton fans with Jacob Wiedering as well. That was a huge collision in that first quarter, and obviously stretch it off is probably not the side that Carlton fans wanted to see, especially 3 weeks out from round one. But yeah, I think overall the spectacle was pretty good. Players looked like they were having a real crack. I think the preseason time slot a few weeks before the season starts is probably the right time for it as well. If you have it in the back end of the season, players are a bit beat up, and probably clubs are a bit more hesitant to kind of put players up for it. But if that's going to be the standard moving forward, I don't see why there's any reason why they couldn't do that, or in some capacity, whether it's 2 teams or they're expanded out to include South Australia and Allies and Tassie potentially, if they've got enough players to do it. I think there's definitely space for it if they want to do it.
The players really bought into it, didn't they? Yeah. Like, you could see that they were there for the game and ready for the game and ready to put on a show, and I thought they did. It was good.
Yeah, a few little dust ups here and there.
Got
the passion going a little bit.
Butters crazy
even
eyes
towards the end, Barras and Butters were getting into it with like 10 minutes to go. I was like, settle down, boys. The game's nearly over.
Yeah. It felt like it was genuine too. Like there was none of this. They talked the talk beforehand, but then they also walked the walk. So
you could see a little bit of the transition stuff that we've been talking about, I think, as well in the game. So it was pretty high scoring. And I think probably the AFL would have liked what they saw, I think, from that.
Yeah, it was a quick game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of defence played. It has to be said. Like, I think once they go back to clubs, there's obviously more time put into defensive system and things like that. But yeah, in terms of like high scoring, like 200 and what was it, about 250 points, I think, across the game. That's pretty perfect, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, big win. Supercoach wise, what did we learn from Origin? The thing I had at the top of my list was that Nick Dacos is a star. It was like, what do you have, 38 and a goal in the end?
Yeah, 13 score involvements or something. Does anyone have a cushion that I can hide my laps? He looked so good. That little sort of, spin he did, and then a little chip over the top to hit Bont. He's really good. But we spoke about the defensive thing. Like, there was absolutely zero attention paid to him.
And he had the best role in the team. Like we spoke about, there was like 12 A-grade midfielders in that Victorian setup. He was the one that was given the license to essentially do what he wanted. Didn't have to worry about defensive structures or anything. But he's a star.
Yeah, he's a star. Whether or not we, still, I think his percentage went up in ownership. But whether or not, like, he's actually in my team too. But maybe more of it as a placeholder at the moment because of Finn having a couple of weeks off with a hip flexor as well, that came out recently. So, I don't know. Like, it's hard to sort of juggle that round 12 bye and the buys in general. But I think with Nick, I don't know. It's going to be hard not to start him, I think. But that round 2 bye is really, really hard.
Yeah. Speaking of Nick, we've had some injury news since we last recorded. So Finn Callahan looks like he'll miss 2 or 3 weeks with a hip flexor problem. So I think he'll probably play opening round still, but that's a fair chunk of pre-season.
It's not ideal, is it?
Yeah.
Not ideal 3 weeks out from the first game.
Sam Taylor hurt his hamstring. We're still waiting to hear severity on that. Toby Bedford really hurt his hammy, so I think he's looking at 6 weeks for the best part of on the sidelines, which, going back to Nick, that was an early fixture for the Pies, and that probably rules out that GWS tag. So I think that also works in in Dacos's favour. Archie hurt his hammy too. Matt Rowell had a small finger issue, but looks like that's on the minor side. There's a few bits of news flying around to keep an eye on. But
and Tom Green's done his ACL as well, which is probably the major one from last week. I think that kind of shocked everyone when we saw that news pop up on Twitter from the Giants intra-club. What was that, Wednesday or something like that, I think, or Thursday? Wasn't long before Origin, but that's a huge blow for GWS.
Yeah.
Just as I was talking up the Giants for the flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've had four injuries to best 22 players in the space of 5 days.
Yeah.
It's been a brutal period for them.
Bandit, what about you? What were some of your biggest Origin takeaways?
Look, it's hard to take much out of what is effectively an exhibition matches, and especially from a Supercoach point of view, like the roles are completely different to what they would be playing at Clubland. The time on ground's all out of whack because they had extended benches compared to what they will have in the season. So I don't think there was much to kind of take away from it. One thing you did mention, Dill, was Max Gawn had a bit of a fitness test prior to that game on Saturday night, so looked like he had a bit of a sore hammy, and it showed during the game. I think most people would have commented during the game how slow and just sort of lethargic he looked. He was kind of just running around, not doing a lot. And I think that was probably reflective of him just maybe trying to look after himself a little bit, knowing that he's flown all the way there, probably doesn't want to pull out. He obviously wants to play. But I think the fact that he had a bit of a fitness test beforehand, I think he was probably a bit more on the cautious side. So I think a few people would have read into that and said, well, that's not a great sign for the season potentially. But again, like we'll have to wait and see what the severity of it is.
Yeah, I think coupled with that slight injury concern and his age and that kind of thing, and sort of the ruck scoring in the game as well, I think has maybe scared a few people with that selection.
Sharing with probably the second best ruckman in the comp, he's not going to be doing that every week. So probably wouldn't read too much into his performance, to be honest. But I'd definitely keep an eye on him if he's going to play intra clubs or the practice matches leading into round one, and just see if he's fully right to go. Because it's the same with Finn. Like an injury just before the start of the season is definitely not ideal.
Yeah, just on those ruck scores. So Darcy Cameron 74 Supercoach points, Max Gawn 58. Luke Jackson played as a midfielder but scored 57. Tristan Xerri 56. And Tim English 30. So it really wasn't a rucks game. What did you think of the ruck rules as a whole? It was the first time we've seen them in action. How did you sort of read into those?
Yeah, look, to be honest, I didn't really watch the ruck contest too closely. And I'm not going to read too much into it just from this game alone, I don't think. I'm still pretty comfortable with Xerri. I think he scored that off about 50% game time, I'm pretty sure, or just mid 50s. So I'm pretty comfortable with him. I am scared off of Gawn a little bit, for the time being at least anyway. So a little bit of a restructure. I think I do like the idea of Luke Jackson, more so maybe around Shrek, struggling to get to contests and that kind of thing. And if he's around the ball, he's just going to take that ruck contest, and potentially get a hit out to advantage and that kind of thing, or jump over the bloke and get a clearance. So I don't mind him. And if he does get forward or even mid, like at round 6, it'd be pretty handy to be able to just chuck him in the midfield or in the forward line. So. And
we know he's a good scorer too.
He's got a pretty good baseline kind of scoring profile, doesn't he? So I think he's a pretty safe selection. I think where the ruck line doesn't seem so safe all of a sudden.
Yeah. Bandit, Lockie McAndrew at Adelaide is sort of firming for that main ruck role at Adelaide. He was in the A side for the Crows intra-club game late last week. He's 119,000 in Supercoach. There's also Liam Reedy, who we spoke about last week at Carlton, who's up with Pitnet at the Blues. Charlie, in our Discord the other day, was talking about the possibility of playing a rookie at R2. Personally, I think no way, but could you do it?
Oh, it's risky, isn't it? I genuinely can't remember the last time that would have been like a proper strategy, to be honest. Like, I know we've had Matt Flynn in the last couple of years, but he hasn't been like that bargain basement proper rookie price. Yeah. Like, they just don't rucks, like, because they take so long to develop and so long to sort of grow into themselves, like, they're usually sort of 24, 25 by the time they really bed down a proper role in an AFL side.
This
and
guy
then
is that, isn't he? Isn't he like 25 years old?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but
he's
he's
on
pretty.
Sydney's list.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
He's not very exposed at AFL level, so that probably raises the question of, like, you know, if he has a couple of poor games. And Adelaide have got some really tough ruck matchups to start with. I think they've got Cameron, English, and Jackson or Darcy. You know, depending on whether Darcy's fit or not in the first month, in 3 of their first 4 games. So, you know, if they do throw him the keys and say, all right, you're our number one guy, but then he gets well beaten by Darcy Cameron and then Tim English, I reckon they'll be backtracking on that pretty quickly. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, it is a big risk when, you know, you consider you could start someone like even a Brody Grundy or something like that, and you're banking 110, 120 points every week.
It screams of hurt, doesn't it? Like starting a rookie at R2.
Yeah, and it's just a tough position to trade out of as well, because if he flops, like, it's not like you can just pivot from primo to primo. Like, you're having to trade someone else out to bring in another premium ruckman. Like, you're not really making a team better by doing that. You're really just burning trades for the sake of it.
And it's got to be a flex play, I think, if it is going to be a play.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not R2 for me.
Yeah. McAndrew is 25 years old. He's played 2 games in his AFL career back in 2023. It's 53 and a 23. The 23 got subbed out in that 53 game. He rucked against Todd Goldstein. It was him and Peter Laddams against Todd Goldstein and Callum Coleman-Jones. So very small sample size, but he was the main guy that day and only scored 50. So
yeah,
a lot's changed for sure, but it's not like he's the prodigy that's been waiting in the wings for his opportunity. This is a guy that's gone the long road
and Adelaide's mucked around with their rucks in the past. You know, we've seen Strawn come in for a few games and that kind of thing, and then Rob comes back, and
it's probably their weakest position, isn't it? Adelaide, like Rob, I think they've probably not benefited from the fact that he's been sort of in the leadership group, and they kind of feel like they need to stick with him maybe because of that. But even then, like, he's probably not in the best, probably 7 or 8 rucks in the comp now. Like, I think the competition's really moved away from that sort of ruckman who
the rules aren't going to help.
He's a hit-out ruckman, but not really much else. Like, you've got to offer something else around the ground now. So, yeah, it's probably their weakest spot, I reckon, Adelaide, in terms of their list. I'm surprised they haven't really tried to address it a bit more, to be honest, but maybe that's probably just out of loyalty for Rob and just wanting to kind of see if he can improve. But, yeah, I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest. I couldn't start McAndrew. I don't think it R2.
Not at R2, yeah. No. Nico, was there anyone from Origin that, outside of Gawn, their stocks decreased for you?
Yeah, I think what I took out of it is maybe analysing where clubs are kind of at. So if you had a look at all the Bulldogs players, they all scored extremely poorly and played pretty poorly.
Yeah,
outside of the Bond, obviously. So maybe just I think their stocks have taken a little bit of a dive. Maybe they're just going to start the season a little bit slower.
Yep.
You saw the Giants players, really come out of the blocks and play really well, like all of them. So yeah, I think maybe just little things like that I noticed. Was like, oh, okay, maybe they're just a bit behind everybody else at the moment, and are going to be playing a little bit of catch up. So yeah,
which isn't necessarily a bad thing either. Teams often talk about peaking and troughing at different stages of the year. Maybe it's a conscious effort from the Dogs to build into their season a little bit more, and instead of tailing off at the back end. Maybe I'm just speculating. I've got nothing on that, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of one thing. I didn't take sort of a particular player or anything.
Yep.
More so just sort of a general view.
Yep.
Yeah.
I really liked the Bond. Like, he's just so classy. I know he's probably the outlier from that Dogs group. I liked what I saw there. Butters did everything you'd expect him to do. Jordan Clark's such a funny footballer. I find him a little bit... He's almost in that Jake Lloyd category where he gets a lot of the ball, but is prone to the odd howler.
Yeah, and I think that makes him an upgrade target.
Yeah.
Rather than a start. It's not like he's 50k or 100k underpriced or something. So,
which is a really interesting point, because I'd sort of penciled him in at D3 as a guy that I could just bank. He's probably going to go 105 for the year. But I am sort of reflecting on that, not off the back of Origin, but off the back of sort of doing a deeper dive. Super consistent, doesn't really shoot the lights out ever, so I don't think he's going to get to 650k and get out of reach. Yeah, interesting type. Bandit, anyone else that sort of piqued your interest from that game?
No, not really. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more out of English, to be honest. And like you said, the Bulldogs players were a bit quiet. Sam Darcy was another one who didn't really get near it for most of the day. So whether people who are keen on him are maybe rethinking that, I think that's the nature of a key forward in Supercoach. Though, like you're going to have the games where he takes 8 marks, kicks 6 goals, and just looks unbeatable.
Yeah, that's why you just wait for him when they've got
and then he'll have another game where he doesn't get near it, scores
30,
30, and then all of a sudden he's down 100k in 3 weeks, and you pick him up on the cheap. I think that's been the nature of Supercoach for a long time now with key forwards. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see more broadly, I think, with the rules, with the last touch rule in particular between the arcs. I think there was one instance where it kind of ricocheted off someone's lower, like shin, like just like not off their foot, but below their knee, and it's like that is classified as a kick still technically. If that came off someone's shin and went through for a goal, that would still be counted. So no one really missed a beat. It looked like the players kind of knew that rule and just sort of reset as if it was like an out on the full kick, and they knew there was going to be a free kick to the opposition. So it'd be interesting to see if that's the consistent interpretation of the rule. I'm sure it will be, but just how hot they are on that through the year, and how long it takes for fans, I guess, to get used to that, because it's such a, I guess they've trialled it in lower levels of footy and they reckon it's worked well, but yeah, we haven't seen it at AFL level, and obviously a lot of fans don't watch VFL games particularly regularly, so it'd be interesting to see, I guess, how quickly the fans get used to that and whether they're okay with that rule.
How clever the players are going to be with it as well. Whereas if
to just handle into someone's foot and just take a chance that it rolls out. Yeah, there could be a little bit of gamesmanship around that potentially. Yeah.
Should we talk match sims? We've finally got some proper footy to look at, albeit with an asterisk. So the Hawks and the Cats were on this afternoon. Either of you get eyes on that at all?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. Yeah, I probably watched about half.
Yep.
Wasn't a great standard, to be honest. That first quarter they played was pretty ordinary. I think it was 6 behinds to Hawthorn to 3 goals, 5 to Geelong. It was pretty scrappy.
Yep, I had eyes on it as well. Bandit, I'll start with you. What were your takeaways from that game?
It was pretty quick. Yeah, when both teams got the ball going from end to end, Hawthorn in particular looked really quick. Like they look like they've really worked on those sort of chains from D50 to forward 50. They got it in very quickly at times. Obviously the finishing was lacking a little bit with a few players not there, but I think just the speed of the game was what really stood out to me across the whole thing that I watched. Albeit the skills were a little bit scrappy in the first quarter, but you could see what both teams were trying to do. Like Sicily in particular, I saw a couple of kicks from him where they were ultra aggressive, like just looking to take corridor and literally kicking it to like Lloyd Meek, who you wouldn't necessarily kick it to a ruckman in the middle of the ground in that situation off halfback normally. But he was pulling the trigger on it straight away. So that might be the way forward for the Hawks if they're keen to kind of explore that way of playing. But we obviously had eyes on Connor McDonald as well, who had a bit of a mixed role. You can obviously touch on that. But
I found that really interesting. Yeah, so he did have increased midfield time, and I think Hawthorn actually, like Gunston didn't play, Hardwick didn't play, Battle didn't play, but they kind of had most of the other regulars in the team, especially from the midfield anyway. It felt as though he had a pretty prominent role in the guts. I thought he looked really good between midfield, half forward, did some really nice things. Could have scored. I don't know what the fantasy scores would have translated to, but he certainly could have got a lot more had he converted on a couple of shots at goal. I think he hit the post twice. Certainly had a few shots. I don't know whether he will stand up when he's up against decent AFL opposition. So the Cats today had...
Yeah, they were very light. Geelong.
Yeah,
they pretty much had a VFL midfield out there.
Had Atkins and Warple, who are obviously first choice, but then they were looking at, George Stevens, Jai Clark, Ollie Dempsey rolled through there as well. So it was kind of I still don't know how much to read into it from a McDonald perspective, and I think I really want to see him up against some decent opposition before I even consider that. Meek and Reeves, I think, are going to work in tandem to start with this year. I don't love that as a Hawthorn fan, but it looks as though that's how they're going to start things anyway.
It's probably now or never for Reeves, really, isn't it? Like, I think he's re-signed for a couple more years, but I mean, realistically, like, hasn't broken through yet. Meek's really established himself now, so he's going to have to do a lot to kind of take over that number one ruck mantle. Yeah.
Newcombe was solid. Josh Weddle played everywhere. He's sort of become our Mr. Fix-It, so another decent, perhaps a draft play there. I think Sam Butler was really good across half forward. He's 190-something K in Classic, so it's on the more expensive side, but pending rookies.
He had a decent final series too last season. So
yeah, it was forward, which concerns me a little bit, given that he might only get 12 touches a game, kick a goal or two. So I don't think there's a huge ceiling there. Jai Clark was good for the Cats at 175, I think he is. But again, Geelong had 13 from their grand final team out. So how much can you read into that? I think Flynn Perez will get our SSP spot. So I suspect that'll mean he's 99K for Supercoach. I'd be surprised if he was there round one, but he looked okay. Polkinghorn from the Cats, another one that I would be gobsmacked if he was there round one, but I think he's one to watch potentially as a downgrade option.
Mitch Edwards in the ruck. What do you make of him? Looks like him and Sam de Koning
they
for
split
most of the day.
Big leaper. Was often getting over the top of our lads. I don't know if he's their first choice though. Reece Stanley didn't play. Blixarves didn't play. They've got de Koning, as you mentioned, so...
Yeah, he's a bit of a long-term project, isn't he? I think he's been on the list for a little while now, but I think he was injured for pretty much all of last year. Didn't get much of a crack at it. So, and he does look pretty lightly framed. He's got the jump on him, but doesn't have the build of an AFL ruckman at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a future pick there. Tanner Bruin didn't play with illness. That was the Cats
laid out.
Classic late change there.
And I think we can put a line through Ollie Greaves and Henry Huswaite for our Supercoach sides. There was a bit of buzz for them throughout pre-season. I would be surprised if either of those guys are there round one. Greaves
falling in that Huswaite trap again.
Greaves is a long way back. I think he was lucky to get on the list the way things went after the first two drafts, but he'll be a guy that has to serve an apprenticeship at Box Hill. And then Huswaite, I think he's had a disrupted pre-season too, so I suspect he'll start in the twos and have to earn his spot. Wasn't a lot of Supercoach relevance in that game, unfortunately, especially with Bruin out. It felt like we were just sort of watching a bunch of guys that we're probably not really going to select. Anyway, Nico, what are you looking for in the rest of the match sims to come?
Yeah, I guess it's more just around role and an eye test more than anything for me. So just, making sure that guys I'm considering have got, or what looks like they've got established roles in the team, that they're, playing decent time on ground for this time of year. So that's probably around, 70% plus. And also, like, I like to keep an eye on disposal efficiency as well. Just sort of sees, like, if the guys are in good touch. They've had a good pre-season. They're feeling good. They're kicking well. They're marking well. Even like Jesse Hogan in the Origin game, he was just clunking marks. He looked really good. And just bullseye. How good were his kicks? Like just
he's
everything
such a good set shot, Hogan.
Yeah. So I'm looking for things like that. Obviously, the intensity isn't going to be there as much as it was for Origin, but just the little things like that I'm looking for more than anything.
Yeah. Bandit.
Yeah, I think like Nico said, probably expanding on that a touch, probably particularly around defenders. Like, are they taking kick-ins? Are they the ball user that their team's looking to get the ball in their hands of regularly? It's probably a big one for guys like Rosé, Clark. Danes Walko's another one who's had really good things said about him in the preseason at Brisbane. They reckon he's looking really sharp. And
the McKercher Daniel thing.
Yeah, McKercher Daniel as well. What does that look like? There's a few spots up for grabs, particularly down back. For the more experienced guys that we're looking to pick as primos, it's probably not as much of a big deal. They're probably just looking to get some run in the legs and just the final blowout before the season starts. If guys get managed through that, don't be scared to pick them. Usually teams are just kind of topping up their preparation and kind of finishing them off before the season starts. And with rookies, again, just making sure that they're kind of locked into a position. Do they look like they're competing with anyone for a spot? Things like that. But I think we'll kind of get into it when I go through my team at the moment. I think there's a really good crop of rookies to start this year. This could be one of the better years that we've had in recent times since COVID. Things have kind of flattened out a bit with the pathways again. Like COVID obviously interrupted a lot of that, so there was probably a couple of drafts that were a bit compromised with the kids coming through. But I think this group looks really good.
Yeah. I'm keen to see Kitty Coleman at the Lions. I've read some really conflicting things about where he sort of played and trained throughout the preseason. Chris Fagan said in an interview today that he's in the best shape he's ever seen him. Actually called out that his preparation and his rehab last year wasn't great, which is why he had a delayed journey back to the top level.
It looks fluid, doesn't it? It looks like it's going to be a bit of half back, a bit of wing, bit of half forward with some CBAs thrown in.
Yeah, which I don't know if I like that for Supercoach, but what is he, 230
At his price,
grand.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm keen to just see how he looks. And yeah, as you mentioned, Bandit, some of those rookies, I think you shouldn't read into it too much when it comes to the premiums and the mid prices. But for these young guys, it's often they're fighting for their
last chance
spots
to push their case, isn't it? Really. Yeah.
So certainly a lot of names to watch there. Anything else you want to flag, Nico?
No, not really, mate. No.
Bandit.
No, play on.
Cool. Well, we are extremely excited to announce that we've partnered with Mountain Culture Beer Co. to kick off the 2026 AFL Supercoach season. So we've got a sponsor. If you've been living under a mountain and missed the memo, they're rated Australia's #1 brewery, winning the prestigious Gab's Hottest 100 Craft Beer Award with their Status Quo Pale Ale for the 4th year on the trot. Thanks to Mountain Culture Beer Co. For their support. We're super keen to be able to talk a bit of Supercoach and have their backing. So if you are keen to give it a crack yourself, head to www.mountainculture.com.au and use the discount code MountainCulture4Pete, and you'll get 10% off beers with your first order.
I assume there'll be a tasting session for
I was
us.
going to say we're going to get some product in and add it to the set. We've got some space behind you, Nico, on that shelf, and behind me, just here in this little shelf here.
Might have to hit up Timmy on that one.
Crack a cold one for when we record the pod. Sounds good to me.
Last week we ran through Nico's team reveal. It's changed a little bit since then, but this week we thought it would be good to go through Bandit's team. So, Bandit, floor's yours.
Yeah, I'm under the microscope. I said to you before we hit record, Nico, that it has changed a bit since last week. Obviously, a bit of injury news floating around. I've kind of had a look at the broader structure of my team and what that looks like, especially with the early buys. You know, we talked about that last week. I was keen to avoid some of those players. I've had a slight rethink of that, not completely, but yeah, a few of those guys have kind of found their way into my side. I think there's a few guys who have fixtures that are too good to pass up.
And the rookies can cover them a little bit as well. As
exactly. Yeah, and I think just having... You know, if you can kind of space them so you're just missing 1 or 2 primos in a week, I don't think that's terrible. And like you said, if we can get some good rookies coming through early and they can score an 80 or a 90, you know, that pretty much is a primo score anyway, early doors. So, yeah, I think that's where I'm kind of at the moment. But yeah, in terms of defence, D1 was Whitfield last week. I've gone a little bit lighter in defence than what I was last week. I think just with the rookies we got back there, it looks like, you know, that this crop of defensive rookies could be the best we've had in probably since COVID, really.
Yeah.
Like there's probably 4 or 5, you know, genuine guys who I think will play very early doors. So
and with pretty good job security too, I think,
as
well.
Yeah, there's a few guys back there that look like they're going to have some decent roles there. So D1 for me at the moment is Connor Rosie. Doesn't really need much explaining. I think if that halfback role persists, he's going to be a solid pick. They'll look to get the ball in his hands as much as possible wherever he's playing. So, no hesitations in picking him. D2, I've got Jordan Clark. So, based on what you guys have kind of said before, I might have to revisit that. But he was, to be fair, his season last year was pretty consistent. He had 15 scores over 100. Had a couple of really big games where he went sort of 140 plus. So
he had a good Supercoach to Dream Team ratio that we like to see as well.
Yeah,
he just watching him, he's almost there.
Yeah.
Like he'll just like fumble a mark or something.
He's prone to the odd howler as well, which I mean, I can sort of look past as a Supercoach watcher, but if you're a Freo fan, I reckon it would roll you up a bit. I don't think there's a lot of upside with Clark, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in terms of starting, but yeah, a Rosie, an Isaiah, a Whitfield could all come out and average 120 in the first 6 weeks, and I wouldn't be surprised. Whereas if Clark goes more than probably 110, I go, oh, wow, he's batting above his average there. So
yeah, I think just for me, like the lack of early buy is probably a push in his favour, I reckon.
Yeah.
Like realistically, even if Nazar averages 120, for example, like Clark's still got an extra game on him in the first 6 weeks. So I'm not as concerned about that. But yeah, like he had that little minor injury issue at training a couple of weeks ago just before Origin. Still came out and played, looked like he was fine from what I could see. Didn't seem hampered or anything like that. So I'm sure that was just precautionary more than anything.
Yeah,
he might have thought that he'd done something serious, but turns out he played Origin and it was no issue. So that was probably the one little scenario where I thought, I'm going to have to pick someone else. But the fact that he played Origin, I'm pretty happy to stick him there for the time being. And yeah, if someone else puts their hand up over the practice matches, I'll have a look at it. But yeah, I think that lack of early buy is key.
Yeah, and he's probably going to be a top 8 guy. Like, let's be real, he's
can't see him dropping
consistent.
Off.
Nice.
So yeah, like I said, I'm batting a little bit lighter. D3, I've got Coleman. I think like Nico said at the price, pretty risk free, and if he does have any issues, you can kind of trade down from there. You don't necessarily have to trade up, but you can definitely find a rookie to take his place. But yeah, even with this kind of fluctuating role, I think he's still got enough to average maybe 70, and that's really all you need out of him, to be honest, over the first sort of 8 to 10 weeks. If you can get a 70 average, you'll get up to probably about 400k, and then you can flip him at Brisbane's buy. So pretty happy to roll with him.
He's in 47% of teams as well, so it's not like it's a
pretty risk-free.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the rookies in no particular order: Xavier Taylor from the D's. Gibcus looks like he'll play early at Richmond. Lindsay's probably the biggest lock out of all the defensive rookies at West Coast. Looks like he's had a couple of highlights out of the most recent intra-club. So
he was in the A side for the Eagles in the intra-club on Friday. Looked really good. Like he was, I think we said last week, he was the best kick in the draft. Got a fair bit of the pill as well. Baker didn't play and Brady Hoff didn't play either, but I think there's probably room for all three.
I think they'll find space for him.
Yeah.
Well, and based on Nico's mail last week, with
our
his old
guy
man reckons he's a lock. So I'm happy to roll with that. Jai Sarong at the Swans, I reckon, will play early and often. I reckon he could be their second or third sort of key defender in that team, and he looks like he's ready to kind of cement that spot. Sydney have got this habit of picking up rejects from other clubs. Well, not rejects, that's probably too strong a word for Sarong. He's a very good player, but someone who can't crack it at another team, and then they go to Sydney and become a really good, not a superstar by any means, but just a really solid role player. And I think Sarong can definitely do that. And Lockie Jakes at the Bulldogs looks like he's a bit of a goer for round 1 too.
I am huge on Lockie Jakes. I've watched him closely since he's come through the pathways, and I spoke to Joel Frazier the other day for some work stuff, and I always ask these guys, like, who's the bolter this year? Who's the guy that didn't have a role last year that will have a role this year? And it sounds as though Jakes will play off half back with Bailey Dale, which is gold for Supercoach. He's been in the system a couple of years now. Great user. Yeah, I'm really big on him as a rookie pick.
Yeah, and there's been some changes at the Dogs as well. Like Taylor Dray's retired. Yep. Jason Johannesson got delisted, or did he retire?
I think it was delisted.
Yeah. So there are some spots up for grabs in the back line of the Dogs, and I reckon he's one that we can not quite lock in just yet. But if he has a good showing in practice matches, I think he's definitely going to be there.
How the hell am I going to fit all these guys in there?
Well, I actually had that conversation with myself the other day. I've got Yulan, Dean. Harry Dean's another one who will certainly play. I don't know what his scoring potential will be like with a few moving pieces at the Blues at the moment. Gibcus, you mentioned. Sarong, you mentioned. Jakes, you mentioned. Jacob Farrow's another one at Essendon who could play early. There's a lot.
Yep.
We need 2 flex spots.
Yeah.
Yeah, just about. All right, moving on to mids. M1, no shock there. Zach Butters pretty much locked in. I think he was probably the first player I picked when the team picker opened. Hasn't left my side. His early fixture's just way too good to pass up. They've got North, Essendon, West Coast, Richmond in the first 4 games. Like in a realistic world, probably outside of North, who expect to improve. Like he's probably got 3 of the bottom 4 teams.
He could average 150 across that.
He could be averaging 150 after the first month. So yeah, no hesitations in locking him in. M2 he's been in and out a little bit. But I guess the more I looked at his fixtures, the more I just couldn't pass him up based on what he did last year. Matt Rowell.
He's your boy, isn't he?
He's my boy a little bit. Yeah. He's good to watch.
Yeah.
Like he's added a few tricks to his game now. He's really trimmed down. He's more explosive than what he was probably when he first came into the AFL. Really looks like he's just primed to dominate for the next sort of 8 to 10 years, really, in that role. So. Yeah, West Coast, Richmond in the first 2 games, a bye, then Melbourne, Sydney, Essendon, and Hawthorn. Like that's a pretty favourable run. Like he's pretty much the first 3 games he plays, he's a lock for a captain role of some description, whether he's a VC or C. I think against West Coast he averages like 140 or something, something ridiculous. So
and he's M2, you said.
Yeah, he's M2 at the moment. M3. I was flirting with the idea, but he didn't come in until after Origin, and that's Nick Dacos. It's just hard to pass up, isn't he? Like he's clearly Collingwood's number 1 player, let alone
he's
midfielder.
number 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, just about. Like he's not going to get a lot of help, but he might not need it. Like he could just average 120 on his year this year. Like I know teams send players to him all the time, but the more he plays, the more he's going to be able to work through that. And we saw a little bit last year. McRae was actually willing to send him to the goal scorer at different times. It wouldn't surprise me if they try that a little bit more potentially, especially if that forward line's not sort of functioning. If they can get away with not having him in the midfield for a 10-minute burst here or there and chucking forward, might be able to jag a goal or two out of him a game, and that could be a big difference maker, I reckon.
He looks a bit fitter this time.
He started last year really slow. Remember, people were potting him in the media because he was cramping early.
He's had a better preseason this year, so.
Yeah, and he's just going to get better. Like he's only 23, 24. Like he's not even his physical prime yet, I don't think. Like, and he's just like you said, he just continues to look better and better physically. Yeah. Each preseason he does, he's just going to get better and better. I think. Like it's probably too early to say it's heading towards Gary Ablett Jr. levels at the Gold Coast Suns early days, but it could be.
This is why I stumped up.
Similar to that.
I paid a bit of cash for his gold rookie card. I'm like, I need to find this bloke on the street. Or go to an open training session and get him to sign it for me. But yeah.
It feels like Dacos is one of those picks that we look at and we think of reasons why we shouldn't pick him. Whereas some of these other guys, it's like, Rao's got a great early fixture, or Callahan ended the year really well. Feels like we're always looking for negatives with Dacos, and maybe it's just a case of like he's actually just a star and we should just pick him.
Yeah, he's just a stud. Yeah, his fixture's probably a little bit tougher over the first 7 weeks. They've got Crows round 1, a bye in round 2, Giants, which has probably become a much easier fixture over the last couple of days, especially with Toby Bedford, who probably would play a run with role in some capacity on him. That fixture's probably become a bit easier. Brisbane will be a tough one. Fremantle will be a tough one, but then he's got Carlton and Essendon after that. Which he'll be captaincy picks against both of them, I would have thought. So, yeah, pretty happy to stick him at M3 for the time being.
You're going to have him at some point of the year, aren't you?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You're basically just saving a trade as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Starting him.
Yeah. It gives me 3 captain options in the midfield as well. Like, I think if I was sort of tinkering with guys who didn't have an early bye, like your Jordan Dawson's, Andrew Brayshaw, Caleb Sarong, like, they're nice players, but they're not guys that you would bank on a captaincy score of 120 plus every week necessarily, unless the matchup's really favourable. Whereas I think with Butters, Real, and Dacos, like you've got 3 guys there who are capable of punching out 125 on any given day. So, I feel pretty comfortable with having those guys in there. M4, I've tinkered with a little bit, but I've got Errol Goulden in there at the moment, another guy who has been a bit of a pre-season boom over this off-season, but... Yeah, sort of averaged 104 last year off 10 games. Had a pretty badly broken ankle in the practice match this time last year, so that wiped out most of his season. But yeah, when he came back, just didn't look like he missed a beat really. His average dipped a little bit, but yeah, I think he can get back to that sort of 110, 115 average. And the way Sydney are going to play, they will want the ball in his hands as much as possible. So
class, he'll play 99% of game time as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard one to pass up, and the fact that we normally get like one of these sort of 550-ish guys who, really pop up and go back to averaging over 110, and he looks like the one who's probably most likely to do that this year. So pretty happy to roll with him, even with Rao and him on the same bye. Like I think the risk is worth taking with those two, just especially with Rao's ceiling, but Errol's as well. Like 550k might be a bargain come the end of the year for him. M5, I'm batting deep in the mids, so I've gone for another guy over 500k.
It's going to be Jack Steele, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not Jack Steele. It's not Jack Steele. I have had Steele in there for a while, but yeah, just I don't know. Like I was looking at sort of like a bit more of a deeper dive on his stats, and someone tweeted on a few like last week that. The Melbourne forwards would be rejoicing because, the 3 worst kicks in the team are gone. Like it was the kick rating of the Melbourne mids was like Oliver -20, Petrarca -10, Viney -7. Like just absolute butchers of the footy when they're coming out of stoppage. Don't hit targets. And then I went and looked at Jack Steele's, it was like -5 last year. So it's like, is he going to keep doing that? Like if he's a great extractor, but if he can't start hitting targets, like he's not going to really be the guy that Melbourne are sort of looking for. So yeah, I've found a few reasons not to pick him, but I have found one guy who I think with his run can start the season really hot. Had a bit of a down year last year, but he has sort of teased us that he could be an uber primo in the past.
I
Another
can't even work out who he's talking
Yeah,
about.
neither. Yeah.
LDU,
Oh.
Luke Davies-Uniacke. So his fixture, honestly, it's as good as Butter's early fixture. So they've got Port in round 1, West Coast, Essendon, Carlton, Brisbane, which will be a tough one, Richmond, and then GWS. Like, that's a very, very comfortable run, especially in that first month. Like, I just think of the guys who are around that 500k mark, he's the one that could just be out of the box.
I actually really like it.
Yeah, I just like North have got to improve at some stage,
Yeah.
don't they? Like, if he's 26, he signed the long-term deal, so he said he wants to be there and sort of take him back to the promised land a little bit. Like, he's the guy that's got to do it. Like, he should be in his prime now physically. He's had a good preseason from what I can find. Like, he hasn't had any injury issues or anything like that. Yeah, I just think he's primed to go back to sort of that 110 average. I think he's one guy who does have the capacity to kind of better his performance of last year by sort of 15 points a game, for example.
Yeah. I was looking.
I'm really keen on him.
Yeah, I was looking at him through these club previews that we've been putting up on our website lately. He said last year was a down year. The year before was 113.6, and the year before that was 109.1. So he's actually got the runs on the board, and he was in less than 2% of teams as well. When I looked at that the other day, just stand by. I'll check that now.
Super pod. I'm dropping 1%ers. You're dropping 2%.
Yeah. It just could be that year. Like, there is a lot of value around this year. Like, I think it's probably the year of value with guys, changing sides and guys coming back from injury or just underperforming for whatever reason. So yeah, I think if you can, all you have to do is just nail one.
Yeah.
If you can nail one, it's a huge leg up on everyone else. I just reckon he's the guy that could really do it.
He's 1.5% owned at the moment. My question with that is, if he flops, when do you pivot and where do you pivot?
I'd give him the first month. I'd be more than happy to hold him through the first month and just see how he goes, give him the fixture. I think the fact that he's around that 500k mark, I've got a little bit of money in the bank at the moment. I think I've got about 90k sitting there, so it is a relatively easy pivot. If he doesn't start well, you can definitely jump on someone around a similar price, whether it's another sort of not keeper like a Jack Steele, but otherwise you can go straight up to a like Caleb Sarong, for example, if he starts well. I mean, I probably wouldn't because he's on my never again list, but someone like
there's
that.
Options.
Yeah, there's options. I don't think you've really snookered, whereas someone like a Caleb Windsor, for example, at 280k, like if you start him and he starts poorly, like that's a tough one to correct out of. You're either going down to a rookie, but then you're left with a lot of cash that's not being used, or you're having to find the money to go up to someone else.
I guess my problem with LDU is he's never going to be like going bad enough for you to just trade him out. Like he's always just going to be there.
Yeah, he was a bit like that last year, wasn't he? When people jumped on him, but he still averaged mid-90s, just didn't quite put it together. You're
holding him and he's going say 80, 90, and other guys are going 110. You're kind of losing 20 points a week on the pack. That's kind of the only major concern I think I have with him.
Yeah. If his fixture wasn't as easy as it is, I'd be less keen. But I just think like he could just average like 115 in the first month.
Yeah, and then
you're off to a
jumping on board as well,
exactly.
and all of a sudden that risk is alleviated in time.
Like I'd much rather start LDU than say a Parish at M5. Like I think that's a better play. That's kind of where I'm at, but people will disagree. That's okay. He's only in 1.5% of teams, so obviously lots of people aren't thinking the same as me. But yeah, I'm pretty keen on him. Yeah. Rookies in no particular order. I've got Ewland at M7, which I think is a good play with Rosé down back. It gives you a bit of a swing to use. It's always handy to have those sort of DPP swings in your team. Yeah. Dan Annable looks like he's going to play early at Brisbane. He's kind of been in their best team in the intra clubs and stuff, so it looks like he's a bit of a goer. Jagger Smith's a lock. Dyson Sharp at the Bombers. Looks like he'll play early potentially, but not locked in by any means. And then Carroll at the Saints has kind of been partnering Sinclair
at halfback
in their scratch matches, so looks like he's going to get a run early. And Harry Schoenberg, who's gone to the Eagles after being with the Crows for a long period of time, looks like he's in the A stuff at the moment for them. So
he played half forward in that intra club the other day and actually had some time through the mids as well. Got pretty high up the ground and hit the scoreboard too. There was a patch of 5 minutes where he kicked a couple of goals or had a couple of shots on goal anyway, and it was quite a decent option. And he's in terms of a bench player, I think he could go 55, 60 and play every week.
Just one thing I noticed, and I took this player out today as well, is Dersma from West Coast.
Yeah,
you didn't mention him.
No, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because like he's a winger and he's pretty skinny.
Playing for West Coast.
Yeah, playing for West Coast. So it's like he's an outside player, first year player.
Yeah,
playing the bottom team.
Find it interesting because I literally took him out today with the same concerns.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's a lot. 200 grand's a fair bit to pay
yeah.
for someone who you're not convinced is going to score 60 every week. Like it's not like a Nick Dacos or a Sam Walsh in their rookie year where they were about the same price, and you're like, this guy's going to average like
pop
90, straight out the gate.
I think for me, I took him out for Cumming from Richmond. I just thought wing for West Coast over 200k versus 170k and getting some CBAs.
Yeah,
and you get a free look with the emergency loop that you might potentially hit a score from him in round one on a Thursday night. So that's kind of where I'm leaning. But just found that interesting.
Yeah, I think Dersma's a watch in the practice games. He'll play wing all year, but he can play other positions too. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if they said, go play halfback for a couple of weeks, go play half forward. Job security.
It'd be an education year for him, I think.
Yeah, job security's through the roof. Obviously, he'll play every game if he stays fit. But yeah, scoring potential was a little bit. He's in my team at the moment purely because I've just tried to pick rookies that I think will play at the moment. I haven't worried too much about how they'll score. So I've got someone like a Harry Deans at 190k. If I see if I think he's going at 50, I'll swap him down to a Rechko type or someone that is a little bit cheaper, and then all of a sudden I've got 50, 60, 70k to spend. I've got Dersma, but question marks. I think that's fair.
Yep.
Who was your M6? Did you say?
Yuland.
Yep.
From the Suns. Yep. Looks like he's going to play.
Yeah.
Again, pretty early. Like, I think they've got some availability. The Suns, especially through the wing roles, they're kind of being a bit funky with that. Looks like what's his name? Ethan Reed.
Yeah.
Big tall guy who was a sort of ruck key position player. Looks like he's got a massive tank. He's a runner, so they're going to trial him in maybe a Mark Blitzarves sort of role. So it sounds like from what I've read, Yuland's very much in the frame to play early. So pretty keen to lock him in.
Yeah, I think he's lock for round one.
And Sam Cumming, like you said, bit of a watch on Sam Cumming as well. Like, I think I read Uze today said that he was built to play AFL footy, so that's
a huge pump up. Actually,
it was like big rap.
Yeah, it was like Sam Lawler's the star, and this guy's not much
far behind. I was like, this is that's a big rap from an AFL coach. So definitely keep an eye on him as well. He could find his way in.
Yeah, I do wonder what the Tigers do with these young guys. Like, do they give them the keys and say, this is your team now, like the Lawlers, the Cummins, the Grills, the Taj Hottons, these types, or is it still, Taranto and Hopper and Pestia, these established bodies that have done it for a decade, give them another year and then let the young guys take over? I think that's a pretty big watch.
Prestia's done another hammy, so he probably won't be there on one. I wouldn't be banking on him too much. But Taranto's an interesting one, I reckon. And he was actually someone I kind of half looked at, but I mean, he just torches the footy.
Yeah, don't do
every
that
year.
yourself.
He went on a hot streak last year, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he averaged like 106. Was it last year or the year before? Like he's one of those players who like should be dominating, but he just for whatever reason just can't fix his disposal.
He could have 35 and score 90 Supercoach because he's going at 50% by foot.
Yeah. But it'd be interesting to see how the Tigers do structure up with the kids, where they rotate them through, or they just pick their best team every week, and that's it. But
they'll want to beat Carlton again round one.
Oh, imagine if they did. All right, on to the rucks. So this has changed a little bit as well since last week. I did have Gawn last week, but he's found his way out. Just sort of for the reasons that we talked on off the top. The hamstring injury is a bit scary heading into round one. I was kind of hoping he'd have a clean bill of health. He's had an interrupted preseason anyway with the finger. Not great preparation, I don't think, considering how much of the load he's going to carry. And then I said to you as well, Nico, before we hit record, if they decide that he needs a bit of help, how much does that impact his scoring capacity? If they bring, Max Heath into the team,
who's apparently doing pretty well in these inter clubs too. Like, I've only heard positive things about him this preseason.
Yeah, he's definitely one who I think could make a go of it, changing clubs. Like, he's been in a couple of clubs now. St Kilda, he was behind Marshall, who's obviously an established ruck. gone to Melbourne with probably the idea that, in a couple of years, that number one ruck role is going to be his when Gawn retires. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Max, but yeah, I think there's enough question marks there now for me to just kind of look elsewhere for the time being. So I've gone with Xerri at R1. Not really that phased about it. To talk about the ruck rules and stuff like that. Like, I think the best players will just find a way to score. And he does that anyway. Like, the knock on him has always been that he scores a bit differently to other rucks, but that's what makes him so good, I think. Like, it just makes him an important difference because he lays so many tackles, because he gets involved around the ground. Like, I think that gives him more avenues to score, not less. So I don't think the ruck rules will impact him too much. So yeah, and again, he's another captain option as well. Like, I've got 4, pretty reliable captain options that I can kind of look to each week. And that was probably something that I, looking back on my team last year, didn't have. Like, I was probably getting a bit too funky with my captaincy picks last year, and that actually really put me behind the 8 ball when it came to the middle of the season. When I did start to nail some VC and C picks, I was still too far behind for it to make any difference, really. So
it's a good point.
Sticking with those guys who are really reliable early is going to make a massive difference.
Yeah, when you spread the funds a bit more and you have a bit more speculative primos in there, it does make the captaincy choice pretty hard.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're forced to, you're trying to chase a VC score rather than just having a safe sort of 120, 125 like a Dacos or a Xerri. You're then sort of sweating on a captaincy pick who, again, might not deliver that potentially. So, yeah, that was my thinking as well. Just lock in sort of 3 or 4 guys who I can just put it on, lock it away for the weekend, and happy days. So with Gawn going out, I've gone with Luke Jackson at R2. I had Jackson, I picked him up sort of mid-year last year, just before he went on that big run that he had with Darcy out of the team. Fun player to own, really fun player to own. Like, he's pretty unique. Like, I don't think there's another player in the AFL like him with his size and capacity to do what he does. Freo have kind of tinkered with him as a sole midfielder this preseason, which I'll be interested to see if that lasts over the course of the season. I'm not sure that it will, especially if Darcy's injured. Like, he's probably going to have to go back into the ruck. But yeah, I think him being a sole ruckman we saw last year, he had some absolutely monster scores against rucks who weren't as good as him. So yeah, the sole ruck role doesn't bother me too much.
It is interesting though with Mason Cox around as well. Like, if Shrek does get injured, do they just play Cox and keep LJ's role as is? Yeah, something to watch.
Yeah, he's one to watch. But yeah, I mean, there's probably like you said before, Dill, like that ruck line's starting to look a little bit not scary, but it's a bit like, who's going to be number 1 this year?
Yeah.
Like, I think in years gone by, like, Gawn's always been number 1, but then you've had like Grundy or Xerri or someone like that not far behind him. But I think this year it's genuinely really up for grabs. Like, Grundy could have an out of the box year again, like he did last year, and average 125 and be the number 1 guy. Tim English, we've seen average nearly 130 over the course of a season previously as well. So he's another one who could just have an out of the box year too. But
it probably is the biggest part of the preseason now is sort of cementing this ruck line.
Yep.
And, where we're going, what we're doing, because it is up in the air at the moment.
Yeah, I've got Gawn and Xerri at the moment purely because I think they're the most likely to be 1-2. I don't care if the price rises and changes and injuries and all this. I think by the end of the year, if you ask me who's going to be 1 and 2, that's who I think. I think Jackson's a great shout as well. He's the only alternative I could see myself going, purely because, if it gets to around 15 and you go, I've got Tim English there going at 105 and Gawn's going at 125, that's such a tough trade to, I guess, pull mid-season when you're trying to upgrade rookies and whatnot. And it could be a lot of points you're missing out on. But as you said, Gawn's got his issues. And I think Jackson's a pretty viable alternative.
Yep, definitely. On to the forwards. F1.
Who's your R3, sorry?
White from the Ds.
Yep, so you're going to loop.
Yeah, just go on the loop. Yeah. I think round 1, Port and North play that first game on the Sunday.
Yeah. Have you done a bit of a deep dive, like for the first 6 rounds or anything like that?
I haven't yet. I probably should. I've done the first round because Xerri and Butters play in the same game, that first one on the Sunday, the early game, and then Real plays Twilight Sunday against West Coast. So with I think Melbourne play that middle game. So there's a little bit of crossover between North, Port, and the Ds, but you get enough of a look at Xerri or Butters to decide whether you're going to go with them. Like if Xerri's on 100 at 3/4 time, you're like, lock him in.
Yeah.
And then if he's not going that well, you're like, I'll just stick with Real as a C. That's probably the way I'll head there. But yeah, you're right. I do need to do a bit more homework on how the loops will fare.
Yeah, one thing for your homework, Kalani White is the only 99k ruck. So you're having to pay up to 113, I think it is, for the next guy. I don't know, that's 15k.
Yeah, it's interesting, the whole, do you start a loop player straight away, or do you just wait for one to naturally occur?
Yeah, that's
like
true.
Reed last year ended up being, that.
Well, I mean, three of the first 4 weeks we've got buy players, so you can use one of them as a loop if you really want to. But yeah, I mean,
Liam
Reedy's
round one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just round one that you've got to kind of deal with. But yeah, Liam Reedy's one that I've still got my eye on.
Yeah.
It looks like Carlton haven't kind of penciled in someone as their number one ruck yet. So yeah, he's one that could potentially come into R3 as a bit of a moneymaker. But yeah, I think he's a bit similar to the Adelaide scenario where he has one bad game and he's out of the team potentially. So not ready to just bring him in just yet, but yeah, he's definitely on the radar.
Yeah.
Forwards, F1, pretty self-explanatory. Harry Sheasel, he'll be a top 2. He'll be 1 or 2 come season's end. It's probably him or Petrarca for battling for that F1 spot at this stage, but pretty happy to lock Sheasel in, even though he's at his top price. Like, I think you just pay what you pay for is what you get with him. He's going to be pretty consistent. So no hesitations about locking him in. It's interesting with North because I did have McKercher in there this time last week as well, but just with LDU coming in, I think having 4 sort of primos or guys in that realm from the same team is a bit scary, and like one of them is probably always going to miss out potentially on the points week to week. So yeah, decided to drop McKercher out and just have Xerri, Sheasel and LDU. I think those 3 guys over the course of the season will be North, top 3 averaging players at the end of the year. So pretty happy to roll with them.
They're always relevant, North Melbourne.
Yeah.
Supercoach.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, good players, right? Doesn't matter whether you're in a West Coast or a North or you're in Brisbane. Like, good players will still average 110, 120. F2, I've gone a little bit different to what I've seen lots of people rolling with. I've gone Cozzy Pickett at F2. Slightly different setup to what some people are looking at, but I think, no early buy. D's fixture isn't terrible, I don't think, early. But obviously with the injuries they've had, the players that have left with Petrarca and Oliver moving out, they're going to need more out of him. Like, he's a marquee player now. He's on big money, so they expect performance out of that. And I think with the new coach, he's going to want to see what he can do. So yes, he'll play forward a bit, but I think he'll get more midfield time as well.
The Origin game didn't put you off at all?
No, not really. I mean,
he looked dangerous, but he just didn't really do much.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was more forward in that game rather than mid. Like, I mean, WA had a reasonable midfield, so it wasn't like they needed him in there a hell of a lot. I think going back to Melbourne, it's going to be a hell of a lot different. Like, they're going to need his help in there, and probably I think just his creative ball use as well. I touched on with Steele's kicking before, not being elite, he could be the one that's sort of farmed it out to Cozzy on the outside and Cozzy doing a bit of damage by foot potentially. So, I just think with where he's at, he's probably got the capacity to average, 90 to 95. And over the course of the season, we've seen probably since COVID, that's enough to be a top 6 to 8 forward, really. Pretty happy to take a punt on him and see how he goes early. F3, Sam Flanders, not much explanation needed there. Rest of the team's pretty cookie cutter, to be honest. The rookies in no particular order: Philippou, Latrell Pickett, who looks like he's going to play early doors at Melbourne.
Yeah, I don't know how his scoring potential will be, but it sounds as though he's right in the mix. But easy pivot if he looks like he's no good for a Supercoach perspective.
Yeah, like you said, scoring could be. I mean, he's a small forward, so yeah. I've got burned a little bit with Kako last year. I think most people would have, but yeah, just didn't really light it up at any stage, did he? So hopefully Latrell can buck the trend there. But yeah, looks from everything I've read, he's done some really exciting things at training over the preseason. So that could be a fun one for D's fans to watch through the year. Todd Marshall looks like he's a lock at Port down back, which is something a bit different for him. Leo Lombard of the Suns, again, looks like he's probably going to be in their best 23. I think the extra player on the bench is probably his role to lose for the time being. He was a sub a couple of times last year and then had a shoulder injury and we didn't really see him again after that. So yeah, looks like he'll get some opportunity. And Dev Robertson as well at West Coast, another one who's crossed over to West Coast and just adds a bit more experience. So I think they'd be silly not to at least give him an opportunity early.
He had
probably better than
midfield
playing
minutes in the
rookie.
A team as well last week, so that's a pretty safe bench.
Yeah, he should be one of the better money makers for the season, you would think.
Yep.
Yeah, probably the one we can hang on to the longest, I reckon. He might be a slow burn at times, but yeah, just one that you can kind of plug and play if you need to, or just park him on the bench.
Yeah.
Flex, lucky last, someone who wasn't in my team last week but has made his way in now, Hayden Young.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wondered that. I was like, he hasn't mentioned Young.
Yeah, sort of ummed and ahed about it, but with, I've only got about, 93k, I could put like a McKercher in there potentially, but again, like 4 players in the same team is probably not a great setup. And that really threw out my middle season buy structure as well. Like I think if I had McKercher in there, I'd have like 8 guys on the same round 12 buy.
Yeah, round 12
which is
tricky.
is pretty lopsided compared to the rest of them. So yeah, happy to stick Young in there for the time being. Like I said last week, I didn't think he was a bad pick. I just couldn't squeeze him in, but I've found a spot for him now. So pretty happy to pencil him in there.
Yeah. Who's someone that you don't have that you would like to have?
Your man, the Lizard, is still calling out to me.
He's dropped out of my team.
Has he?
We've spoken about the defensive thing. Like, I'm finding it a bit difficult to have the 3 primos in the back with all the good rookies that are available there.
Yeah.
So
you run
and the buy's a killer as well.
Yeah.
Like, that early buy is just a real nuisance.
Maybe he's just an upgrade target, but yeah.
So have you got 2 premiums into Coleman at the moment? Do you?
Well, McKercher sort of found his way in at that sort of
At D3.
at D3,
okay.
that sort of lower 50, 60k cheaper, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I feel like I've got a few risks in my team at the moment. I'm waiting for a 300k forward spot to open up for me, hopefully in the preseason. So Lawler's there at the moment, but I've also got Windsor and Parrish. Floating in there as well.
You've gone mid-price
a
man,
little bit. One of those could turn into a proper premium with a bit of restructure. But yeah, that's where it sits with the tinkering that was done today. So.
Yeah, I think all the guys that I would love to have in my team all have early buys.
Yeah,
like I'd love to have Bont. I'd love to have Grundy.
Yeah,
I'd love to have Blakey. Like they've all just got buys, and you can only have so many. Like through that period. So I think I've got 3 on early buys. I think that's probably my limit, I reckon. Yep.
Nice one. We have fired up the SC Playbook Unlimited League again this year. Literally put it together 5 minutes before we clicked record on this. So the code is 721987. 721987. We've got a $1,000 cash prize for that league. So if you win it and you're a subscriber, you get $1,000, which is pretty huge. If you're not a subscriber, you'll get $500, and then $500 will go to the top ranked subscriber. So
are we eligible to win that?
No.
I wish we were. Not that we would. You might, Nico. Although we were saying off air, how long can you hold on to your second place?
Still, I'll always have that jacket.
Still got the
right
still got the tracksuit.
Yeah.
Can't take that away from you.
So yeah, get involved with that. The website's firing as well. Harry West, who Nico, you said does a lot of the Premier League content. He wrote a really nice piece about the rucks that went out this week, which is quite interesting, and about the new rules and whatnot. So check that out if you haven't. The club previews, we're going through those as well. I'll have some cheapy analysis as well that comes up over the next week or two, which I'll update as we learn more about these guys. So keep a close eye out on that. And for just $2 a week, you'll get access to all the Playbook resources. So the AFL, NRL, NBA, EPL, the whole gamut of that. So get involved with that. And you'll also get access to the Discord, which is where I'm finally getting the hang of this Discord thing. It took me a week or two, but that's where we've gone for our community questions this week. Yet again, Nico, I'll start with you. And Bandit sort of touched on this with his team reveal. Brendan wants to know, is captaincy being slept on with the death of the rucks? Are you factoring that into your starting midfield, or hoping Butters is enough? So I think more broadly, are you taking the similar route to what Bandit was doing and what I've done as well, where you picking 3 or 4 guys that are weekly options, or you're hedging a a bet on a guy like Butters and hoping that he can sort of carry you through.
A little bit dramatic for my liking from Brendan. I don't think it's the death of the Rucks just yet. So
Probably
let's just cool our jets a little bit on that one. But I think Xerri's still going to be a very good VC or C shout moving forward, and a really good selection. So, I mean, he probably would have gone 120 in the Origin game if he played, a full game. So, yeah, I'm not really worried about him. I do, however, like the idea of starting someone, nailed as a good, safe option. There was a year that I went Rory Laird, though, and he dropped a 50 in round one.
Oh, yeah,
That's
I remember
right.
that. That was
Yeah.
2023, I think it was. Yeah.
So he was my safe captaincy for that season, and things can obviously backfire, but yeah, I think it's important to have 2 or 3 good options, as Bandit touched on. And yeah, and sometimes you just have to pay for that privilege. So if it's 50K more that you're gonna have to spend for that, then just do it. I think it's worth it.
Yeah. Bandit, I'm going to ask you to project a long way out here. Who are the top 3 captaincy options in round 1 from DVG? I suspect you're going to target the fixtures. With that. So you're looking at your Port players, your North players potentially.
Yeah, it's probably the 3 guys I said before. I think, but I mean, you'll have to pick one of Butters or Xerri because they play each other. So probably one of those guys. If I had to pick one, probably go Xerri, I reckon, of those 2. He's got a good record against Port. And then Rao, I think, is pretty much a no-brainer against West Coast. Just has a phenomenal record against them. I think that 140 average he's got across his career includes that game where he got hurt in his rookie year and only scored like a 6 or something. That was a bit of a sliding doors moment when we all jumped on him in his rookie year and he flew out the blocks and then got injured and wasn't seen again after that, which was a what could have been moment for that year. But yeah, I think they're probably the 3 guys in my team specifically that I'm really keen on.
Yeah.
If you're paying up for the bot, he's got to be involved, doesn't he? In your
he would have to be.
151 against the Giants last year, and
against what will be a pretty weak Giants midfield now as well. Yeah, compared to what they would like it to be, it'll really just be probably Callahan if he's there, and Clayton Oliver, and that's probably it from a top line point of view.
Cheeky one here for you, Nico. Comes from Brendan again. Was the Meek train officially derailed today? Reeves R2.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment earlier when you were talking about Reeves being in the team. So yeah, hopefully it's there's less of that choo kind of stuff in the now Discord. But
yeah,
look, it's all a bit of fun, a bit of banter. Obviously, if you've been in the WhatsApp group, you know what we're talking about, and it's part of the game of Supercoach is getting around your boys, and especially when you're riding a unique and they're scoring really well, you get up and about. So it's good fun.
Yeah. Don't pick Reeves at R2 though if you were thinking about that.
No, God,
that's fraught with danger.
Couldn't do it.
Bandit, another one for you. DVG wants to know about Tom McCarthy out at the Eagles. What are the positives? What are the negatives?
Yeah, he's an interesting one. We were talking about him before we jumped in here, weren't we? I mean, all the noise coming out of West Coast is that he's looking fantastic, like dominating all the match sim stuff they've been doing, and obviously had a great start to his AFL career in the back half of last year when they signed him as a mid-season rookie. I guess the one major negative is he's playing for West Coast, and all their match sim stuff is against the guys who aren't getting a game at West Coast, and those guys aren't particularly good. They are very good footballers. Don't get me wrong, but like from an AFL standard, they're not cutting the mustard elsewhere. So that obviously tells you something about where they're at. So yeah, I mean, whether that translates into the real season and if he can maintain it, I'm not sure. I think there's definitely capacity for him. Like, I mean, West Coast probably won't have a lot of high scoring players through their team, but it's probably just how much of a share of the points across a game are they going to take as a team, West Coast, relative to the opposition. Like, I don't think it's going to be...
Yeah, the pie's
I don't think it's going to be huge, so the pie's been pretty small to start with.
Doing a bit of research on the go here, having a look. He actually played the last 3 games with some decent sort of CBA. So 48%, 41%, and 43%. I'll cut back to you and then I'll see what he scored. So,
yeah, look, if you like him, I don't see any reason not to pick him, but I think I'm not sure he's going to be a keeper. That's probably the one thing. If you're going to pay $500K for someone, you probably want him to be a keeper. And I just don't think he's going to beat that.
Yeah, doesn't have an early bye, which is a plus. DVG mentioned he's had 3 scores over 100 last year in 10 games, which is nothing here nor there. But
they played Gold Coast away in the first game.
Yeah.
They could just get absolutely pumped.
Yeah.
And
Screams
he
100
scores
points.
60.
Yeah.
And you're up against it right from the word go.
So he went 80, 77, and 83 with those CPA percentages. So if they do go up, though, significantly, like if it's another
it sounds as
20 or
though he's their
30%,
main guy. Like, it looks as, based on the intra club that I watched on Friday, whenever it was, it looks as though him and Harley are the two that they've really said, this is your midfield group. But
is it enough, though, for him to go like 95 at that price point? Maybe for a little.
I mean, he probably needs, 95 is the absolute bare minimum. I'm just not sure he's going
probably
to
has
get
to he has to go 100, doesn't he, to be worth your time.
Yeah,
I think
to
so.
be a
It's not
knockout.
more.
He has to be a knockout pick.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's going to beat that.
Yeah, I think you're probably putting a bit too much trust in that sort of natural progression, and I don't see the point of really being the first there. Like just wait.
Yeah, just wait and see, I reckon.
Yeah.
Nice one. Anything else you want to raise before we wrap things up?
No, well, obviously, like round 0 is not far away. It's like
20
2.5 weeks.
Yeah, yep.
I think so.
Round 1 is 24 days away and 24 minutes.
Yep.
I just got I've got the Supercoach ticket here.
Yeah.
So what's
Nice.
that? 17 days for
Yeah,
round
and
0?
we're going to be having a lot more footy to talk about as well.
Yep.
Which is great. So yeah.
Great time to get involved on the Discord with all the intra clubs and practice matches going now.
Yeah.
There's actually going to be some really good content flying around, so definitely stay tuned.
And obviously it's good for the news channel as well, and we'll flick a lot of Twitter things in there as well, so you're up to date with all the news. So
too easy. Well, on that note, make sure you get involved, and we'll see you all next week.